Bla bla bla, gud alltså. 3 minuter.
So hello everybody, this is my presentation to you guys. I think it's the first time I've met anybody from the Arctic Game Lab. I've known of you guys for about a year now, since I've been doing some trips to Oulu into northern Finland, and they were talking that there's similar activity going on across the border in Sweden, that I should really come and talk to you about doing something together. So I think this is a really good first stab at exposing what I'm doing to help the game industry, especially startups in the game industry. So let's get going. The topic of today is 10 reasons why an investor will say no to your games company. So an introduction to myself. I'm Joakim Akrén, the founder and CEO of Elite Game Developers, which is like an online games business school for helping entrepreneurs, people who want to know what it's like to actually build a successful games company in modern times, where there's a lot of competition, a lot of interesting stuff happening, and still a lot of things to figure out and to explore. So I have a podcast which I started a year ago. There's 60 episodes where I interview game company founders, game investors on all sorts of topics. So you can find that on Spotify. It's Elite Game Developers Podcast. And then I have a blog on my site, Elite Game Developers, where I'm constantly posting new articles on things like how do you model a cap table for your gaming startup, where you have investors coming in and taking a share of your company, and you want to see further down the line what it looks like with the ownerships and things like that. So there's a lot of those kind of articles and templates that I'm sharing. And I just released a book a while ago called The Long-Term Game, How to Build a Video Games Company. It's on Amazon. If you go and look up Long-Term Game and with my name, you'll definitely find it there. And I have online courses specifically around gaming startups. I have one course that I'm going to be talking about later in the presentation today, how it works. But yeah, on my background in gaming, so I started my first games company in 2005 called Ironstar Helsinki, which was doing virtual worlds for Nokia mobile phones. Like, that was a sad try at building something cool that now, you have companies like Fortnite and things like that are very interesting multi-platform virtual worlds. Back in those days, people didn't really have connectivity on their mobile phones. iPhone was still, years away. We pivoted to do Facebook games later and became profitable for a while, until Facebook closed down all the viral channels like the friend requests. And then we ran out of money. I went to work at Supercell in the early days before Clash of Clans and Heyday. I was there for over a year running their analytics department. And then when those games sort of started rocketing, making millions every day, I was like, I need to do another game startup. And then I left to found Next Games with 4 other people here in Helsinki. I left last year because I wanted to do something else. I saw that I wasn't there was no more personal growth for me at that company. I wanted to go into helping entrepreneurs. I already had been mentoring, advising a lot of people in gaming through the years. And it felt like a calling for me to start Elite Game Developers. So Next Games is still around, doing fine. They have the Walking Dead games, and there's a Stranger Things game coming out soon. I think there was a leaked video on YouTube. If you want to check it out, I have nothing to do with this leak, but it's a really cool looking game. So, but yeah, going into like today's topic and my work with venture capital, with investors, I've raised, I think, like if we count the Next Games IPO, it's not really like raising from VC, but still altogether I've raised over 50 million for startups that I've founded. And I really saw at Supercell why that company got, I think, 12 million. early stage before they had Clash of Clans and Heyday. They were doing the Gunshine game. They still, managed to raise that much money. All of these kind of learnings I've been trying to put together now into what I'm delivering through Elite Game Developers and today as well in the talk. So what are the odds of, like if you take 100 startups, how many of them will get funded? VCs and the investors hear 100 pitches, like hundreds and hundreds every year. It's most likely there's the ones that are most active, they're getting 1,000 pitches every year. So out of 100 pitches, 99 will get a no. So how do I know these statistics? Well, on my podcast, I've been talking to a lot of investors, and they've told me that they're constantly going through a lot of companies, but they only do maybe 1 or 2 investments in a quarter. So it's sort of very evident that they're really looking for the right company to invest. But why? How do they actually categorize those? So through kind of like all these discussions with entrepreneurs and the investors, and from my own experience, I wanted to put together the 10 reasons that I see as the commonalities for why 99 out of 100 will get a no. So reason number 1, you're doing a lot of beginner mistakes. You can be a beginner, but there are certain places where you're kind of like stumbling into a moment where it didn't really make sense. Like I see a lot of entrepreneurs, reaching out to me and asking like, hey, I have this spreadsheet that, this guy over there shared to me, which has a list of hundreds of investors and their email addresses. Like, hey, this is like, have you seen anything like this? And I'm going to start like going through this list now. And it feels like, for them, they're really happy because they have a list like that, and it increases their odds that that's what they usually think. But there's a lot of problems with these kind of lists, is that when you're connecting to these venture capitalists through cold emails, they're already getting a lot of this kind of cold outreach, constantly bombarding from people through LinkedIn. Like if they go to LinkedIn, they have 20 requests to connect every day with an email or a message regarding an investment. So there's a lot of that going on. So I think like one of the main things that you need to start thinking about here is doing a lot more homework before you reach out. Like research those VCs, what stage are they investing in? Do you have common friends that know this investor, and they could basically recommend you as kind of like somebody that the investor should take a look at, sort of like that there's a filter in between you and the investor. That's always very useful. I've seen, I do it constantly, that there are entrepreneurs who reach out to me and then they're asking, hey, can I get an intro to North Zone or somebody else who's really like a top ranking venture capital firm? And I'm then like thinking about like, first, is this a really good fit? Is it going to work? And then I go maybe to the investor and still ask them, do they want to open a dialogue with this founder? This is what they're doing and stuff like that. So I try to be helpful with the VCs, because then it's anyways going to kind of like, the entrepreneur won't be using too much time with the investors who anyways will say no. Like the likelihood is like 1 out of 1 billion that they would invest. So it's helpful for using these kind of like clear gatekeepers, or sort of like more or less people who know better where you should be going after. And another point here regarding like beginner mistakes is that investors don't sign NDAs. This comes out often a lot for me as well. Like somebody is asking me to help them, and they have a brilliant idea, but yeah, let's do a NDA. This is a struggle here, is that usually what investors will do is they're hearing like hundreds and hundreds of companies coming to them, and if all of them would say, we need you to sign the NDA, that would be a legal mess for the investor. And like, can they even like have a real good discussion with any other entrepreneur when they've signed 100 NDAs? Because they need to remember like, oh, am I kind of like doing a conflict here with this mess, or is there a legal claim coming out down the road soon? So that is one of those big mistakes. It's also a red flag that sort of like the entrepreneur hasn't figured out that investors shouldn't be asked to sign NDAs. Reason number 2, so lack of clarity on the money side, like how much you are raising and where are you raising. So you need to think about this money as not something that you're going to be paying higher salaries for yourself, or, you know, that you can live the life that you lived before you started building your startup, that you were getting a comfortable salary when you were working for the bigger game company. You need to think about, like, how much am I willing to take that I can survive? Like, what is the minimum? And then as the company starts making money from the games, you can think about these higher salaries of, like, you know, there's more money coming in. But sort of like when you're at the stage that you're using investor money to, you know, live on that you definitely don't want to take a bigger salary. So I always think about this analogy for, like, when the money needs to go for growing a company. Like I explained that you're building a video games company, so you're playing a video game yourself where you're kind of like on level 1, you're meeting these challenges and obstacles and enemies down the line in the level, and then you get to the boss fight. And in a sense, with your startup, you're going to need investor money to beat the boss and to go to level 2. And this money shouldn't go into just, you know, fumbling around on level 1, or like not having, you know, beaten already some of the obstacles along the way and seeing that the end boss is now coming for you to reach level 2. So then the money goes to level 2 operation, and then usually what happens is you're going to want to raise some more, like a bigger round, because you want to go to level 3 as well and to operate on level 3, not stay on level 1. That's the clear guidance here. So reason number 3, so not thinking about the fit. Like you have the spreadsheet, let's give this example again, of 300 investors, starting off with the first one, alphabetically going through them. Like there's, you know, there's a lot of things like there going on. You're just focusing on, hey, I need the money. Who's going to give it to me? I don't really know if, you know, this or that venture partners company is good for me or not, but I just need the money. But like, rather you should think about and do this research again and figure out who can be a strategic help for you down the line. You know, that they have maybe some operational experience from building games companies before. There are really good VCs out there, like you have here in Finland, we have Play Ventures, then you have London Venture Partners in the UK, but all of them, of course, invest globally, like there's Makers Fund. These are the top tier gaming investors you can go after. But if you sort of like have this huge list of investors, you might have people who would never want to invest in games. And that's like, so you're going to spend a lot of time with these people who will, anyways, when they get back to you, they will say, we don't, you know, invest in games, or we invest in Series C or B when it's like tens of millions already on the table. So do a lot of research if there's a fit there or not. And I think like every year there will be more and more gaming investors popping up. Just like a few weeks ago, there was this Transcend fund. I think you can find it by Googling transcend.fund. They have $50 million fund, and they're investing into new gaming companies at the early stage. And before that, there was another one. There's constantly new ones popping up who are specifically investing into gaming, and they know gaming. So they're the best for you. Reason number 4, it's not about the pitch that matters. It's the conversation after the pitch that really matters. So the investors will want to talk with you. They will want to ask questions, and the quality of your answers matter. And it's not about like, hey, here's this question, and then you have an answer ready made, but it's rather a fluid conversation where you can also ask like, hey, so what do you think? And these kind of like friendly discussions over coffee should be the format. And one of those reasons that you're gonna get a no, this is one of those questions that I really like to ask founders is, can you articulate all these possible failure situations for your company? And then we want to have the discussion of what are the ways to navigate past these failure situations so that they don't never happen. And of course, like one of the other things is to talk about your momentum, what's going on, and creating this fear of missing out for the company in a healthy way, not pointing out that, who is advising you or whatnot, just by name dropping, but rather like creating a good feeling about the conversation. Reason number 5, so business basic, knowing your numbers, your industry benchmarks. Think about like understanding what is the competition doing, what kind of games do they have out there, how much are they spending in marketing, or how many players do they have, what are the players saying. Don't focus on the small or highly competitive markets. I really like to hear people talk about a bigger vision that the company will be building this one game now, but the game is sort of like just one step towards a bigger vision. I think this is a place where you get a lot of points from investors when you see that, hey, if I'm trying to raise venture capital money, I need to have the appetite and the ambition for doing something big. Otherwise it's going to be really tricky to have a really good fit there. Reason number 6, so only pitching an idea and not really showing that you've gotten some progress on your hands. So you want to be able to show clear progress to the investors on what you've been doing. Like you could have prototypes, you could have your first players playing the game. Maybe it's already on Google Play that people can try it out. So what are the metrics there? What kind of updates have you put out to improve the metrics of your game? Reason number 7, technical skills versus product and market understanding. I think this is very interesting when this is sort of like an extension for the conversation after the pitch. Like how well are you adversed outside of technical skills? Like technical skills could be that you're really good at tech, just you have the best Unity people who can build the best games, metrics, how to build a virtual economy, you've built games before. So it's about like having these things, but then the product and market understanding is often something that doesn't really come out of the game designers, especially people who went after the game's career as a passion. They're sort of like building their favorite game idea, but they don't really articulate enough what the end user, the player wants. What is their need that your game is addressing? And also, what are your insights that you have about the market that maybe even other people don't have? Spend some time on thinking about these insights, because I think that's one of the crucial reasons that you get closer to a yes than a no. Reason number 8, so having focus. I categorize this kind of like focused entrepreneur in two kind of like things that they should focus on. Having a short-term clarity on what they're doing and a long-term thinking big. So what does the short-term mean? What you could think about is like, what are the top 3 things that need to happen in the next 6 months? But also to show real clarity, you need to state what you're not going to do. Like what kind of activities, like where do you spend your time versus like not doing it? Because you then start going through kind of like, hey, this entrepreneur is actually pretty focused. I might invest because I can work with them because they're not all over the place. It's just, unfortunately, that's the way it goes. Then long-term talking about a vision and a mission for your company, because then the investor will see that, hey, this is somebody who really wants to lead people, that they can talk about things that will make people jump out of bed in the morning and be motivated to come to work and work towards this, bold, bigger vision than life. And thinking also about these topics that really go into the long-term thinking is like, how do you build a team for the growth? Can you get people? Can you get talent? What are the critical team members that you lack right now to actually go 12 months into the future, 24 months? Who will you need then to have in your team? Like, these discussions will really give a positive impact for the investor. Reason number 9, unique insights on product and distribution. Like, both are needed. You need to think about that, how to make these games, why players want to play them, but also distribution, meaning marketing. How do you get people to notice your game? How do you grow a player base? Understanding that side is really important. And how do you keep your players once they're in your game? Reason number 10, not being a storyteller. I think this is where so many people that I've helped in the recent months, they have issues with telling a really compelling story. What is the bigger than life idea that you have? Okay, it might be now one game. That's how I did my first games company. I was thinking about, like, this is like, I have this one idea for the virtual world, and it's going to be cool because we have these and these features. You can dress up your own characters, you can collect virtual items in the virtual world. Well, why is that a bigger than life idea? What does it mean for people around the world? Why will they gravitate towards what you're building with your company? And then the investors will definitely want to bet on these bigger dreams and these bigger ideas. And you want them to feel that they can dream about, like, what it is about, like having this kind of like an interactive narrative going on there, where the investor can also participate in the narrative. And I think the most clear thing here is to avoid not being arrogant regarding competition, what everybody else is doing, but rather focusing on, like, creating win-wins for the whole industry, that we're pushing things forward, and not saying that, hey, those guys, they don't know what they're doing or something. That's really a red flag for a lot of investors. So how do you get things right? What are the keys? So I had Callum here, who's the founder of NetSpeak Games from London. He was on my podcast. You can go there to elitegamedevelopers.com/EP51 to listen to that episode. So he had a really interesting approach to fundraising. And he never built a games company before. He worked at Improbable for several years, and then he left about a year ago. And I think they raised now 2 million. As I'm maybe correct with the number, but like, he met up with a lot of people in London who were close to venture capital, and started asking, like, how do I really start raising? What is the real, like, way to do it? And in this episode, he shares actually a lot of cool stuff. So I really recommend you go and listen to it. It's an hour-long episode, but he's a really cool guy. So to finish off today's lecture, I wanted to kind of like give you guys this understanding of this one course that I have on my website, which is called the Pitch Your Gaming Company online course. It has lecture videos, templates, but also 3 live sessions with me over video calls, where you get, like, direct insights and help for your games company and your pitching to investors activities. And you're going to get a lifetime access to the updates. So you can check it out on elitegamedevelopers.com/pitch. So I'm happy to take a lot of questions, and I'll answer a lot of them. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's free for everyone to just ask questions. I have a couple for you. I'm just thinking about we have a lot of like real indie studios here.
Yeah.
If you are that studio and you don't have access to the best Unity developers, you have some well, you probably have some quality issues or some team issues or something. How do you pitch? How do you get through, or will you get through?
No, it's super difficult if you don't have talent. So how do you grow the talent internally is a big question. How do you scale up your team that you have right now, or how do you attract talent to your team, which you're not able to do right now? What are the reasons? It's maybe there's the thing that you're going after, the thing that you're building might not be something that people want to work on. That's of course a problem. Like, how do you change that? Like, why did you start your games company in the first place is a really interesting question as well. Like, was it just that you're passionate about an idea, but why is the idea bigger than life in a sense? There's a lot of ways to go after like scaling up your mission and vision. So I would go into that area realm. There's an author called Simon Sinek. He's really good like presenter and lecturer. He talks about this start with why for any company. Like, that you need to have a belief, a reason to exist in the world. Like, why does the games company need you? Yes, somebody's Magnus Söderberg is pointing out that he knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, so that's one of those, like, if you're thinking about an indie company, that's fine. Like, I love indie companies. I try to help them navigate, how could they start paying salaries for themselves with the games, because I think that's what you want to do. You want to have a job in the industry and you want to be your own boss. So how do you achieve that? There's a lot of tools out there. So Simon Sinek, check out, he had a new book as well called Infinite Game, which is about companies who are not trying to win, but they're trying to stay in the game. Like, there's a different mindset and mentality there where you're not, just thinking about short-term rewards, but like long-term road ahead where you have rewards as side products of just being on the road.
I think there's two reasons why you start or why you want to go into the games industry. It's first that either you have a passion for the games, or you have a passion to get money. You want to get a successful company.
Yeah.
And I think those two routes will change the look and feel of what you do. It's gonna reflect in how you pitch your game and how you think about your company. Is it like, should you downplay something, or should you how should you handle it? Is it important with the passion for the games, or is it important with the passion for the money?
I think it's important for the passion for the games. That's what the investor will also want to hear, in a sense. Like, they want to invest in life-changing ideas, which are bigger than just one game, in a sense. Of course, there is a financial incentive there that they need to, when they're investing other people's money, like they have a fund and they're investing from that fund, they need to return the fund to their like limited partners who put money into the VC fund. But in a sense, like, the bigger than life ideas are usually about, a passionate entrepreneur going after something huge because they wanted to change the world. I think that is the ultimate story. So can you find something that really has meaning for you? Like this kind of, hey, I want to, every morning when I wake up, I'm so passionate about the idea because like, if you have one game now, what will the next game look like, the next one? And you're building a company that stacks on top of these games. So I would say focus on the game, but also think about, first off, how do you pay your salaries? What do you need to do there? and then afterwards, when you become profitable, how do you sort of like hire more people to change the world? Kind of like you go into that realm more once you've sort of like been able to pay your salaries.
Yeah. I think that connects to the storytelling as well. And I suspect, like for being an indie developer, the storytelling is going to be even more crucial to get through.
Yeah,
that's the tricky part, to get to deliver that game that changes the world.
Well, you need to start somewhere. Like I was talking to one company from Oulu who are doing this kind of music DJ game, and the founder had a background in the music industry, and we were talking about like how do we bring, or his idea is to bring music to the front and center of mobile gaming. So how does he do that? He has one game now, which is an idle DJ clicker game. So that's sort of like he's climbing a mountain, like an analog of climbing a mountain, and he has reached the first kind of like platform there on the mountain with the first game. What has he learned so far? What does he need to learn to reach the next platform? Because there's constant learning happening. So it's not just, we do a game, if it didn't work, we throw it away and we start from zero. But rather, like, think about game development as a constant learning progress, that you're a learning machine that learns about company building, company, like games companies building specifically, how you make money, how can you survive. Once you start surviving, you can start thinking about the other benefits there down the road. But it is sort of like a path that you start off with, and it takes a long time.
I see quite often when we look at indie games teams, it's students that met each other at school and start doing a project and start building something.
Yes.
But if we look on the other side, on quite many successful games, the teams are more divided. It's people come from different places with different experience. Is it will it be a big problem if you just have a couple of students that do games together? Will they be able to succeed, or do they need to think in other ways?
Yeah, I would say, like, start figuring out what you need to learn next. And it's not about, becoming better at Unity or something that, like, of course you need to have people who are programmers who are coding the games, but at least in the team you should have one or two people who are curious about why, certain things work in the market, why some companies become profitable, and what is the things that you can take, utilize and learn from the companies that are starting right now. Like, there's a lot of people who look at older games companies that were founded 20 years ago who are doing console and PC. Their models have evolved as well, and they're also might be struggling now with the ways that they get the games to the people's hands. They used to go through Sony publishing their game or something like that, and that route isn't something that is going to work for you. So rather look at the companies who are just being founded, who just got investor money. What are they doing? Ask around and learn from companies who are at the same stage as you are, rather than the big ones.
Super. Right, we have a question in the QA.
Yeah, actually 2 questions. Do you have any advice on how game developers should start building hype around their games? That's the first question.
Yes. I have two kind of like answers. I think I sort of advise everybody to first start thinking about hype around their company. Building that through like the start with why stuff, like why are you existing in the world, and creating something compelling, and then the game is sort of like the side product of that company needing to exist in the world. So yeah, and of course, like, then when it goes down to just finding finding more players for your game, like going and understanding on mobile, like how user acquisition works, because nowadays in mobile it's all about seeing if you can, you know, return your ad spend. So it's not about like building hype that much. But on PC and console, that's a different thing. And there I advise a lot of people to talk to also other companies who are currently trying out things. Discord is of course very interesting. I don't have any personal experience with Discord, but yeah, ask around from other developers who are on the same platforms, who have just recently done something on the similar scale that you are trying to do. That's a really good place to start.
And a question, does the VCs usually have an opinion about marketing the game before it's released?
It really depends on what you're doing. I think the more common thing that might come up is that, hey, you guys don't have anybody who understands marketing. How are you going to address this issue? I would say this is more of a like, hey, the company is missing a critical team member who would be looking after marketing or figuring it out, or how user acquisition works. And that's what the investors can point out. This is something I've heard a lot, is that, yeah, it's an interesting team, but it seems that they have their hands full with making the game and nobody's really looking into how the distribution will work. So either you hire somebody or you designate one of the team members to really research the marketing and the distribution aspects to address that investors' worry.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm actually curious. Have you seen any like effects of the coronavirus when it comes to game investments? Have you heard anything how investors think and so on?
Yeah, I think the early stage is pretty okay. So if you have, you know, a great idea, a great team, like let's say like this 1 out of 100 companies that gets investment, I think that still happens. Investors are still looking at cool companies. And of course, like now you have like the world is changing where people are more and more in these kind of virtual environments like Zoom. Of course, Zoom isn't a game, but if you can bring something that is like a game experience in a Zoom, something that maybe you can just pick up easily and enter into, and it's a game world, those kind of things will definitely get more attention from investors. But still, like, I think it's not about like they're worried about the economy at the moment. Of course, like in 1 month, everything can change. Maybe the second wave of COVID-19 just hits us and then nobody's playing games anymore. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But at this stage, not too many things have changed. I think more, if a company was already struggling, that, hey, please, can you give us more money, that they had already investors on board. I think those situations will be tough. That do they actually let those companies die and not help them because they were already in a business that is suffering too much from COVID-19?
I'm also thinking like the stock market is much lower. The value of the stock market is much lower right now, which might mean that investors have less money to invest.
Well, the thing with the venture capital funds is that they have money that has been committed from years ago, and usually it might be harder now for new investors to start coming out. So the existing ones are most likely having really like business as usual moments, but more or less, I think less money isn't a problem necessarily at the moment. There's a lot of money to go around. It's just the good ideas that need to be surfaced.
Sounds great. Okay, we don't seem to have any more questions. So I think we can round this up. It was a pleasure that you could join us. Super interesting talk.
Sure.
And we'll try to stay in touch and see what's happening. We might be having you here as a guest or something else in the near future.
Happy to anytime.
Sounds great.
Hey.
All right, Joachim, nice to meet you. And
Likewise.
everyone, see you again next
people.
week.
Bye-bye.
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 Super.